Right. Let's get one thing straight. I love my bus. The behemoth, I call her. She's my magnum opus, my sanctuary, my slightly too large for suburbia passion project. And Brenda Higgins, HOA Karen extraordinaire, president of the Elm Street Homeowners Association, and general thorn in my side, absolutely despises it. This morning, like too many mornings, starts with her. I'm elbow deep in the behemoth's main wiring panel, the one that's eventually going to control the external PA system array. It's a beautiful Saturday, sun shining, birds chirping, the kind of day that's perfect for running about 1,000 feet of 12-gauge copper. The behemoth, all 20 tons of her ex-city transit glory, is parked squarely in my driveway, which, according to Brenda's latest barrage of emails, is a flagrant violation of aesthetic harmony. You know, Dave says, leaning against the open doorway of the bus, sipping one of my beers. For a guy who claims he just wants to be left alone, you've built something that basically screams, "Hey, look over here, I'm doing weird stuff." Dave's my best friend. He doesn't always get my projects, but he shows up, offers moral support, and drinks my beer. Qualities I appreciate in a friend. It's not about being looked at, Dave, I grunt, stripping a wire with my teeth because the strippers are just out of reach. It's about potential, self-sufficiency. This baby, when she's done, will be part mobile workshop, part emergency operations center, and mostly just awesome. I envision it, a rolling fortress of solitude and capability. Custom tool benches, a small but functional galley, a communications suite that would make a Cold War spy jealous, and yes, a PA system that could, if needed, address the entire neighborhood, or, you know, announce when the ice cream truck is coming. Priorities. Emergency operations for what, exactly? Dave asks. The annual HOA barbecue running out of potato salad? Before I can retort, the atmosphere shifts. It's a subtle change, like the air pressure dropping before a storm, or in this case, the distinct, rhythmic click-clack of determinedly sensible heels on asphalt. Brenda. She's marching up my driveway, a purple clipboard clutched to her chest like a shield, her face set in that familiar expression of someone who's just smelled something foul and suspects you're responsible. This wasn't our first rodeo. Last month, it was the primer gray color of the behemoth. It's not an approved HOA hue, Michael. It's aggressively utilitarian. The month before, the solar panels I was test-fitting on the roof were unsightly. And let's not forget the Great Fog Machine incident of 23, where my attempt to test a high-output dispersal system for reasons resulted in a complaint about simulating a Class 3 atmospheric disturbance without prior environmental impact assessment. I think she just made that last one up. Michael, she begins, her voice tight enough to crack walnuts. Princess Fluffybutt, her yappy miniature poodle that looks like a sentient cotton ball, is yapping at her heels, no doubt echoing Brenda's sentiments in canine. This vehicle, she gestures vaguely at the behemoth, as if it might bite, is still an eyesore. And the noise. My poor Princess Fluffybutt has been utterly traumatized by your incessant hammering. I wipe grease off my hands onto an already trashed rag. Brenda, good morning to you too. It's a work in progress, you know? And I was using a rubber mallet. Very low decibels. Practically zen-like. She's not amused. She thrusts the purple clipboard at me. Another violation notice, Michael. Section 7. Subsection C. Paragraph 2. Unauthorized vehicle modification or restoration projects visible from street level for a period exceeding 48 hours. You're on day 73, by my count. I take the slip of paper. My collection is growing. I could wallpaper the inside of the behemoth's bathroom with these things, if I ever get Pipes, the plumber, to actually install the toilet. Thanks, Brenda. I'll file it with the others. She gives a curt nod, her lips pursed. See that you do. The committee meets on Tuesday. This continued defiance will be noted. She turns, heels clicking, Princess Fluffybutt yapping in her wake. I let out a long breath. Dave raises an eyebrow. 73 days of defiance. You rebel, you... It's an art form, I say, turning back to the wiring. On a small, crackly radio perched on a stack of tires, a weather report interrupts the classic rock. And turning to the weather folks, Tropical Storm Esmeralda is continuing to strengthen in the Gulf and has now taken a more direct turn towards our coastline. We're expecting heavy rainfall beginning late tonight, with a significant potential for localized flooding by tomorrow afternoon, especially in low-lying areas. Residents are advised to review their emergency preparedness plans. Dave and I exchange a look. Localized flooding, huh? He says. Wonder if Brenda has an HOA bylaw for that. Probably involves mandatory sandbag color coordination, I mutter, already feeling a familiar prickle of unease that has nothing to do with Brenda and everything to do with what a localized flooding usually means for our part of town. I need to call Sparky, my electrician. If this storm is as bad as they say, I want the behemoth's external lighting rigs and that PA system a lot closer to operational, just in case. Later that afternoon, after a typically frustrating call with Pipes the plumber. A composting toilet in a bus, Mikey? You trying to grow tomatoes in there or something? Sparky finally shows up. He's a wiry, hyperactive guy who talks a mile a minute and seems to run on pure caffeine and enthusiasm for anything weird. All right, Mikey, my man, Sparky chirps, bouncing on the balls of his feet as he surveys the bus. Heard we got a storm coming. You trying to make this thing amphibious too? Or just light it up like a Christmas tree in a hurricane? Just want options, Sparky, I tell him, leading him to the main power distribution panel I've been wrestling with. I need the main external floodlights wired in. Got 6 of them, high-intensity LEDs, and the PA speakers, all 4 corners. Can we get 'em switchable from the main console? Sparky's eyes gleam. Switchable! Mikey, we can make 'em dance to a disco beat if you want. But yeah, individual switching, master control, dedicated circuits. You got the juice for all this? Got a heavy-duty alternator and a bank of deep-cycle marine batteries that could power a small village, I assure him. And a backup generator if things get really sporty. Attaboy! Always have a backup for your backup. Now, this PA system, you were serious about the decibels? You planning on talking to God or just the next county over? Let's just say I want to be heard, Sparky. Clearly. Over, say, a significant weather event or an HOA president with a megaphone? Sparky cackles. I hear that. That Brenda Higgins, right? My cousin lives 2 streets over. Says she tried to write him up because his garden hose wasn't coiled counterclockwise. Some people just got too much time and not enough real problems, you know? We spend the next few hours pulling wire, mounting weatherproof junction boxes, and getting the main systems connected. Sparky, for all his frantic energy, is a magician with electronics. He even helps me rig up a temporary but effective waterproof seal around the new antenna mounts on the roof. There, he says, wiping sweat from his brow as the sky outside begins to bruise into an ominous purple-gray. The wind is picking up, whistling around the corners of the house. She ain't pretty, but she's functional. Floodlights are on switches 1 through 6. PA is on master 7. Mike is hot. Just don't blow out the neighborhood windows, okay? No promises, Sparky, but I'll try. I pay him, and he scurries off, muttering something about needing to batten down his own hatches. Dave, who'd left earlier to check on his own place, texts me. Storm's looking mean, dude. You got enough beer in that land yacht of yours? I text back. Always. And enough batteries to watch every movie ever made if the power goes out. As night properly falls, the rain starts. It's not the gentle spring shower we've had lately. This is a determined, angry downpour, hammering against the roof of the behemoth, where I've retreated to make some final checks. It's surprisingly cozy in here. The sound of the storm outside a dull roar, the internal LEDs casting a warm glow. I feel a sense of satisfaction. This bus, she's coming together. Then my phone buzzes. It's an email notification. An HOA email blast from Brenda, naturally. Subject, urgent. Impending inclement weather protocols. Attention residents, the email screams in all caps. In light of the impending storm, please ensure all decorative outdoor items, gnomes, flamingos, wind chimes, whimsical squirrels, etc., are secured or brought indoors immediately. These items can become dangerous projectiles in high winds and, frankly, some are quite tacky even in calm weather. I snort. Only Brenda could slip in an aesthetic judgment during a storm warning. Furthermore, it continues, any vehicles not housed within garages must be parked strictly in accordance with Bylaw 7, subsection B, paragraph 4, pertaining to vehicle size, weight, and visual impact. No exceptions. This is for the safety and orderliness of our community. Let's all do our part to maintain Elm Street's high standards, even in the face of meteorological adversity. Meteorological adversity, I mutter. She's definitely been swallowing a thesaurus again. I glance out the behemoth's reinforced windscreen. The streetlights cast watery, distorted halos on the pavement. The wind howls. Then I see it. A shadowy figure in a bright yellow rain slicker out in the tempest. It's Brenda. And she's not just inspecting. She's doing something. She's at the end of her driveway, right by the curb, hammering something into her already saturated lawn with a mallet. In this weather, curiosity, or perhaps a premonition of peak Karenism, gets the better of me. I crack one of the behemoth's side windows, the wind immediately trying to rip it from my grasp. The thumping is clearer now. She's installing a new sign, larger than her usual ones. Illuminated by a precariously aimed flashlight, I can just make out the stark black letters on a white background. HOA rules are not suspended by weather. Violators will be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the bylaws. I close the window, a slow grin spreading across my face. She's really doubling down, I say to the empty bus. This is going to be interesting. The rain pounds harder, as if in agreement. The early morning light, if you can call the gray, churning mess outside light, reveals a world awash. The rain hasn't stopped. It's intensified into a biblical deluge. My phone is buzzing like an angry hornet on the makeshift bedside table. I've rigged up in the behemoth. I'd decided to sleep in her, partly to keep an eye on things, partly because she felt safer than the house. It's a flash flood warning from the county emergency alert system. Flash flood warning remains in effect. Low-lying areas are experiencing rapidly rising water. Evacuate immediately if advised. Tune to local authorities. Then I hear it. The distant, rising and falling wail of the town's flood evacuation sirens. They're new, installed just last year after that minor flood almost turned into a major disaster for the folks down by Willow Creek. It's a robust, multi-siren system, designed to cover the whole town. Good, I mutter, pulling on my boots. They're working. Finally something sensible. The sound is eerie, cutting through the roar of the storm, but also reassuring. The sirens wail, a mournful, urgent cry for about 60 seconds, maybe 90. Then, abruptly, they cut out. Not a dying fall, like a power failure, but a sudden, sharp silence. All I can hear now is the relentless drumming of rain on the behemoth's roof, and the gurgle of water in the gutters, which are already overflowing. "What the hell?" I say aloud. "Power outage to the siren grid?" I check the behemoth's systems, all green. My house lights, visible through the rain-lashed windscreen, are still on. So it's not a general power cut. I grab my phone, try the town's non-emergency line first, then the emergency management office. Both busy, just that incessant beep, beep, beep. My gut clenches. Something's not right. The main siren control box for our neighborhood, one of the primary nodes for the system, is at the end of our cul-de-sac, right next to Brenda Higgins's award-winning and currently drowning rose garden. "Oh no," I whisper, a horrible, absurd suspicion dawning. She wouldn't be that. I throw on my heaviest rain slicker over my clothes, grab a high-powered flashlight, and plunge out into the storm. The wind whips the rain into my face, stinging my eyes. The water in the street is already over my ankles, a churning brown mess of leaves and debris. I slosh my way towards the end of the cul-de-sac. The siren control box is a big, gray, featureless municipal cabinet, usually locked tighter than Fort Knox. As I get closer, I can see it. The main access panel, it's ajar. Just a couple of inches, but definitely not secured. And there, in the mud around the concrete pad the box sits on, are footprints. Smallish, sensible galoche-sized footprints, leading directly to and from Brenda's meticulously edged, now thoroughly swamped, lawn. My flashlight beam plays over her house. Dark. No sign of movement. Then I catch a flicker behind her prize-winning and rapidly submerging azalea bushes that border her property line with the utility easement where the siren box stands. I move closer, my heart pounding a mixture of dread and disbelief. Peeking out from behind a particularly large, drooping azalea, like a villain in a low-budget spy movie, is Brenda. She's still in her yellow rain slicker, hood pulled up, though her perfectly coiffed hair is plastered to her forehead. She's trying to look inconspicuous, which, for Brenda, is like asking a neon sign to blend into a forest. And in her hand, partially concealed behind her back, is something metallic. Something that glints in my flashlight beam. Something that looks suspiciously like a pair of heavy-duty insulated wire cutters, now caked with fresh mud. I stop. The rain is a curtain between us. My voice, when it comes out, is dangerously calm, but loud enough to carry over the storm. "Brenda, what in the ever-loving Sam Hill are you doing over there?" She jumps, startled, and whirls around, nearly losing her footing in the muck. She tries to shove the wire cutters further behind her back, a gesture of such blatant guilt it's almost comical. "Michael!" she exclaims, her voice a shrill squawk that barely pierces the wind's howl. "Such language! And what are you doing skulking about in this dreadful weather? What am I doing?" I can feel my blood pressure rising, a familiar sensation when dealing with Brenda, but this time it's laced with genuine alarm. I'm wondering why the flood evacuation siren suddenly went dead. And I find you, lurking by the control box, looking like you've just been caught robbing a liquor store. Brenda draws herself up, a feat of some dignity considering she's standing in 6 inches of rapidly moving water. "I was merely inspecting the municipal equipment," she declares, though her eyes dart nervously towards the ajar panel on the control box. It was making a dreadful, unapproved noise, quite jarring to the neighborhood's ambience, I must say, especially at this early hour. I just stare at her. The rain is plastering my hair to my head. I can feel a muscle twitching in my jaw. "Jarring?" I finally manage, my voice hoarse with disbelief. "Jarring, Brenda? Those are flood! Evacuation! Sirens! There is a flash flood warning in effect for this entire area. People could be—" I trail off, momentarily speechless at the sheer, breathtaking audacity of her. "Nonsense," she sniffs, though she avoids my gaze, focusing instead on a piece of debris swirling past her feet. "It's just a little rain. A bit enthusiastic, perhaps, but hardly cause for such cacophony. Besides, she adds, a note of triumph entering her tone, the HOA bylaws, specifically Article 4, Section G, regarding noise abatement, clearly state that any continuous amplified sound exceeding 70 decibels between the hours of 6 a.m. and 10 p.m. requires a permit from the Architectural Review Committee. They didn't have a permit, Michael. I checked. My jaw, I think, actually drops. I can feel the rain hitting my tongue. You cut the wires? Or disabled it somehow? Because the town's emergency siren system didn't have an HOA permit? I can hear my own voice rising, edging into hysteria. Brenda finally meets my eyes. Her expression one of unwavering, unshakable self-righteousness. The rules are the rules, Michael. They apply to everyone. The town, the county, even, she adds with a pointed look at my distant, slumbering behemoth, oversized, unsightly personal projects. This unauthorized racket was disturbing the peace and likely causing undue alarm. I simply rectified the situation. Rectified. She'd rectified the situation. I'm frozen, rain pouring down my face, my brain struggling to process the monumental and HOA by law level of stupidity I've just witnessed. People's lives could be at stake, and this woman is worried about permits and ambiance. My feet feel like lead, but I manage to turn. I have to. There's no reasoning with this. I sprint back towards my house, towards the behemoth, my mind racing 1,000 miles an hour. This isn't just HOA madness anymore. This is dangerous, potentially deadly. People down by the creek, the elderly folks in the Willow Creek condos, families with young kids. They might not know how bad this is getting, or how quickly. I splash through my front door, grab the emergency services number from the fridge magnet where it's lived untouched for years, and dial 911 on my cell, my fingers fumbling with the wet screen. 911? What is your emergency? The dispatcher's voice is calm, professional, but strained. Yes, hello. I need to report that the main flood evacuation siren for the Elm Street area has been deliberately disabled. My voice is too loud, I know, but I can't help it. Sir, we are experiencing high call volumes due to the storm. Has your property been flooded? No, not yet, but that's not the point. Someone shut off the siren. I know who did it. Her name is Brenda Higgins. She's the HOA president. She lives at 12 Larkspur Lane, and she had wire cutters. She said it didn't have an HOA permit. I'm babbling, I know, but the words are tumbling out. A pause. I can hear a flurry of keyboard clicks in the background. Sir, are you saying the siren was tampered with due to a homeowner association dispute? There's a note of incredulity in her voice now. Yes, that's exactly what I'm saying. Look, can you just send someone to turn it back on? Or arrest her? Preferably both. Sir, all available units are currently responding to storm-related emergencies, road closures, and active flood assistance calls. I will log the information regarding potential tampering with municipal equipment, but I cannot give you an ETA for an officer to investigate a bylaw dispute at this time. Bylaw dispute? I almost scream. This isn't a bylaw dispute. This is reckless endangerment. People need those sirens. I understand your concern, sir. We are doing our best. Please stay off the roads unless absolutely necessary and monitor local news channels for updates. Click. She hung up. I stare at my phone, feeling a cold wave of frustration and despair wash over me. They'd logged it. Logged it. No one was coming. Not quickly, anyway. Not quickly enough. The sirens were dead. The official channels were overwhelmed, and the water was rising. My gaze falls on the behemoth, parked in my driveway, rain sheeting off her broad sides. She looks like some slumbering beast waiting. Waiting for what? The new PA system Sparky and I had just finished wiring. The powerful external LED floodlights, the heavy-duty batteries, fully charged, the onboard generator topped up with fuel. the ruggedized tablet mount by the driver's seat ready for navigation and information display. It hits me. A crazy, absurd, probably highly illegal idea. But in a world where HOA presidents disable emergency sirens over permit violations, maybe crazy is what's needed. "Okay, you magnificent primer gray bastard," I whisper, a wild grin starting to spread across my face. "Time to earn your keep. Time to make some approved noise." 5 minutes. That's how long it took. 5 minutes from the dispatcher's polite dismissal to the moment the behemoth's big diesel engine coughs, sputters, and then roars to life with a sound that probably violates at least 3 of Brenda's precious noise ordinances all on its own. First thing I called Dave. He answers on the 3rd ring, his voice sleepy. "Mikey, dude, it's like 6 in the morning and sounds like Armageddon out there. What's up?" "Dave," I say, my voice tight with a weird mixture of fury and exhilaration. "You will not believe what Brenda just did. No, seriously, you won't. She took out the flood siren. For our whole neighborhood." "She what?" Dave's awake now. "The actual emergency siren. Why?" "HOA permit violation. Apparently saving lives is secondary to proper paperwork and maintaining neighborhood ambiance." A stunned silence on Dave's end. Then, "That woman is a public menace. So what are you gonna do? Write her a strongly worded letter?" "Something like that," I say, flipping a series of heavy-duty switches on the custom console I'd built into the behemoth's dashboard. One by one, the external floodlights blaze to life. 6 of them, turning my rain-swept driveway into a miniature, shockingly bright stadium. "Anyway, I'm taking the bus out." "Taking the bus out? In this?" I can hear the alarm in Dave's voice. "Mikey, are you nuts? The streets are probably already flooding. Where are you going?" "To make some noise, Dave," I say, grabbing the slightly chunky microphone for the PA system. "Some very loud, very necessary, and, as far as I'm concerned, entirely HOA-approved noise." I hang up before he can argue. I flick the master switch for the PA. A satisfying crackle comes from the 4 large, weatherproof speakers mounted on the behemoth's roof. I press the transmit button. "Testing 1, 2. My voice booms out, amplified 100-fold, slightly distorted by the sheer power, but undeniably loud. Loud enough to be heard over the storm. Loud enough, I hope, to wake the dead. Or at least the living who are about to be very, very wet. "Attention residents of Elm Street and all surrounding areas," I project, my voice echoing off the houses, cutting through the wind and rain. "This is an important public safety announcement from your friendly neighborhood, eccentric with an oversized bus." I see curtains twitch in the houses across the street. Lights flick on. Good, people are hearing it. Then, predictably, Brenda's front door bursts open. She storms out onto her porch, a vision in her yellow slicker and an expression of utter apoplectic rage. Even from here I can see her mouth working, probably shrieking obscenities and bylaw numbers. Princess Fluffybutt is at her feet, yapping hysterically, probably adding her own canine curses. It appears the official flood evacuation sirens have been temporarily decommissioned due to unforeseen administrative issues. I continue, trying not to laugh at Brenda's furious, rain-soaked pantomime. However, a flash flood warning is indeed in effect. Please be advised, tune to your local emergency broadcast station or prepare for possible evacuation if you are in a known, low-lying area. This has been a public service announcement from me, Mikey, and this rather large bus. Stay safe out there, folks. With a final, booming, "Be prepared, not scared," I release the transmit button. I engage the behemoth's surprisingly smooth transmission. "Thank you, Allison." And with the grace of a particularly agile whale, she rolls out of my driveway. The water in the street is already lapping at the bottom of her tires, a good foot deep and churning with debris. Most cars wouldn't make it. The behemoth, with her high clearance and heavy-duty everything, barely notices. My first stop is the end of the cul-de-sac, right past Brenda's house. She's still on her porch, practically vibrating with fury. As I pass, I give her a cheerful little wave and a quick blast from the behemoth's surprisingly potent air horn, another recent upgrade. The look on her face is worth every single HOA fine I'm probably racking up. I navigate the behemoth slowly down Elm Street, her floodlights cutting through the gray murk, my voice echoing from the rooftop speakers. Attention, Elm Street residents. This is a mobile public advisory. Flash flood warning in effect. Low-lying areas are at significant risk. Please take precautions. People are coming to their windows, their front doors. Some look confused, some alarmed, a few even give a tentative wave. A couple of teenagers down the block, already out in the storm for some reason, actually cheer. This is working. People are getting the message. As I approach the intersection with Oak Avenue, I see flashing blue and red lights. A police cruiser, angled across the road, clearly trying to block access to a section that's already looking more like a river than a street. It's Officer Miller, the younger cop who's had a few run-ins with me over vehicle compliance issues regarding the behemoth in the past. He's out of his car, looking soaked, stressed, and thoroughly miserable. He spots the behemoth lumbering towards him, lights blazing, my voice still booming. I can see him squinting. Then his jaw drops a little. Unidentified large vehicle. State your purpose and desist operations. His voice crackles over his car's PA, sounding tinny and weak compared to mine. I switch my PA back on. Officer Miller, that you? It's Mikey, from the big gray bus that Brenda hates. Just doing a little community outreach since your official noisemakers seem to be on an unscheduled vacation. Miller slogs through the deepening water towards me as I bring the behemoth to a halt. He has to shout to be heard over the rain and the idling diesel. Mikey, what in the Sam Hill are you doing? Dispatch said someone disabled the Elm Street siren. They didn't say someone else started their own mobile freaking concert. Yeah, about that, I say, leaning out my window, the rain instantly soaking my arm. Brenda Higgins. Your siren didn't have the correct HOA permit, so she, rectified the situation. With wire cutters, apparently. Miller stares at me, rain dripping from the brim of his hat. Then, despite the chaos, the stress, the sheer absurdity of it all, a small, tired smile plays on his lips. An HOA permit? For the flood siren? You're kidding me. Wish I was, officer. Wish I was. You know, he says, shaking his head, this is probably illegal as hell. Impersonating an emergency vehicle, unauthorized broadcast, creating a public nuisance, I could write you up for a week. He pauses. But, honestly, thanks. We're stretched thinner than a $2 banjo string out here. Every unit is tied up. The fact that you're getting the word out, it's actually helping. Just then, another police cruiser, this one a bigger SUV, pulls up behind Miller's, its lights cutting through the deluge. The door opens and out steps Sergeant Kelly. Older, tougher, with a face that looks like it's seen too many bad days and is currently experiencing another one. He does not look amused. He looks like he's just found a new bus-shaped headache. Miller! What in the godforsaken blazes is this circus? Sergeant Kelly bellows, his voice like gravel in a cement mixer. He glares at the behemoth, then at me. Son, you can't just drive a damn mobile disco around during a declared emergency. What are you, some kind of doomsday prepper party DJ? I try for my most earnest, public-spirited expression. With all due respect, Sergeant, I project, using my indoor voice on the PA, which is still loud enough to make him wince. It's a mobile public information dissemination unit, and the good people of this town need to know about the rising water. The official system is, shall we say, experiencing technical difficulties due to a lack of appropriate HOA paperwork. Sergeant Kelly looks at Officer Miller, who just gives a helpless shrug. He's not wrong, Sarge. Dispatch confirmed the Elm Street siren cluster is offline. Looks like definite tampering. And the lady who lives next to it, well, she's got a history. Kelly pinches the bridge of his nose, a gesture of profound weariness. An HOA dispute. In the middle of a flash flood, of course. Why not? He sighs, then fixes me with a steely glare. All right, mister. Mobile information. Just try not to cause any more chaos than is strictly necessary, okay? And for the love of God, stay out of the really deep water. That thing. He jerks a thumb at the behemoth. Looks like it'll float about as well as a concrete outhouse. Will do, Sergeant, I chirp, trying to sound responsible. Mostly. Just spreading information and good cheer. I give him a little salute, which he does not return. Miller, however, gives me a quick, almost imperceptible nod before turning back to deal with a citizen trying to drive around his roadblock. I put the behemoth back in gear. Time to take this show on the road. Or, more accurately, the rapidly inundating suburban streets. I make my way through the neighboring streets, my voice narrating the unfolding disaster. Attention residents of Willow Creek Drive and Puddle Lane. Yes, Puddle Lane. I see the irony. Your areas are particularly vulnerable. Please consider moving to higher ground if you haven't already. The community center on Hilltop Avenue is opening as an emergency shelter. My ruggedized tablet, securely mounted, is my lifeline to information. I've got live weather radar, a feed from the County Emergency Management Twitter, or X, whatever it's called this week, and even a couple of local Facebook groups where people are posting real-time flood updates and photos. I'm relaying everything I can. My phone buzzes. It's Dave. His voice is crackling with excitement. Dude! Oh my God, dude! I'm watching the local news Facebook live stream. Someone posted a video of your bus rolling down Maple Street, lights blazing, you on the horn. They're calling you Captain Apocalypse. And the voice of reason. And that crazy guy with the bus. It's amazing. Mostly positive comments, actually. A few people think you're FEMA in disguise. Captain Apocalypse, huh? I chuckle. I can live with that. Better than HOA Violator of the Month. As I'm navigating a particularly tricky section where the water is already halfway up the tires of parked cars, I spot it. A sedan, nosed into a dip near the Willow Creek culvert, water swirling around its door sills. There are people inside, an elderly couple by the looks of it, their faces pale and frightened. Other cars are trying to back up, creating a log jam. The creek itself is a raging brown torrent, well over its banks. This is bad. Attention drivers and residents near the Willow Creek Bridge area. My voice booms, hopefully cutting through their panic. We have a vehicle stalled in rising water with elderly occupants trapped. Repeat, elderly occupants trapped. If you are able to safely clear a path for an emergency vehicle. That's me, folks. Please do so. If anyone has a functional tow rope and can safely assist, your help is needed. The behemoth, bless her oversized heart and high axle clearance, can get closer than any of these civilian cars. I'd installed heavy-duty tow hooks front and rear, more for getting myself out of hypothetical mud than for water rescues. But hey, versatility is key. I've got a couple of 20,000-pound tow straps in the external storage compartment. I bring the behemoth as close as I dare, her engine rumbling, her lights illuminating the scene like a Hollywood movie set. I grab a strap and my emergency flashers, then wade out. The water is surprisingly cold and strong, tugging at my legs. It's up to my thighs now. It's okay, I shout to the couple in the car, trying to sound reassuring. I'm gonna get you out. The old man rolls down his window a crack. Thank you, young man. We thought we could make it. Never trust a flooded road, I say, mostly to myself, as I assess the best place to hook the strap to their car's undercarriage without ripping off their bumper. After a few tense minutes of fumbling in the murky water, I get it secured. I give them a thumbs up, then wade back to the behemoth, connect the other end to my rear tow hook, and climb into the driver's seat, dripping everywhere. I put her in low gear, ease on the throttle, and feel the satisfying, solid pull as the behemoth takes the strain. Slowly, steadily, with a groan of protesting metal from the smaller car, she pulls the sedan, occupants and all, out of the deepening water and onto a slightly higher, slightly less terrifying patch of road. The elderly couple is shaken, but immensely grateful, showering me with thanks and blessings. I just nod, give them a quick, "Stay safe, call your family," and start restowing my gear, my adrenaline pumping. And that's when she appears, like a malevolent, waterlogged wraith. Brenda. She must have sloshed her way from her cul-de-sac, and how she got here through this mess I have no idea. She's clutching a sodden, bedraggled copy of the HOA bylaws, which are rapidly disintegrating in her grip. Her face is a mask of fury that even the torrential rain can't wash away. "Michael!" she shrieks, somehow making herself heard over the wind and my idling engine. Your contraption is exceeding the HOA mandated gross vehicle weight limit for residential streets, especially," she adds, gesturing wildly at the submerged asphalt. "When the substrate is saturated, you are causing irreparable damage to our community infrastructure." I stare at her. I am wet, I am cold, I am tired. I have just pulled 2 terrified senior citizens from a potentially life-threatening situation, and she is worried about the asphalt. And furthermore, she presses on, apparently not noticing my stunned silence, this unauthorized, uncertified, and frankly highly irresponsible water rescue operation. You don't have the proper permits. You don't have the training. You are a liability, Michael, a clear and present danger to this neighborhood's safety and its property values. That's when something in me snaps. Not loudly, just a quiet little click. "Brenda," I say, my voice dangerously low and calm, the rain running in rivers down my face. "Respectfully, there are people, actual human beings, in actual immediate physical danger all over this town. Their homes are flooding. Their cars are stalling. They are scared. And you," I take a step towards her, my boots squelching in the muck, "are worried about the perceived structural integrity of the asphalt and permits." I'm close enough now to see the surprise in her eyes, the momentary flicker of something that might, in a lesser Karen, be uncertainty. "Go home, Brenda," I say, my voice still quiet, but with an edge that even I find a little frightening. Go home. Or, and this is just a wild suggestion, find someone, anyone who needs help, and just try to be useful for once in your goddamn life instead of quoting bylaws at a natural disaster. She actually takes a step back. Sputters, opens her mouth, closes it again. For the first time since I've known her, Brenda Higgins seems to be momentarily, blessedly, lost for words. It's a small miracle. I don't wait for her to recover. I turn my back on her, climb into the behemoth, and drive away, leaving her standing in the rising water, clutching her dissolving rule book. The next few hours are a blur. More rain, more announcements, more navigating streets that look more like canals. The behemoth handles it all. Her big tires churn through the water. Her engine never misses a beat. I guide people away from flooded underpasses, relay information about road closures, and generally try to be a beacon of noisy, well-lit, slightly unhinged hope. Eventually, the rain starts to ease, from a torrential downpour to a steady, miserable drizzle. Word comes over the county EMS channel, which I'm monitoring on a scanner app Dave recommended, that they're setting up a temporary emergency staging area at Northwood High School, since it's on high ground and has a massive parking lot. I figure that's as good a place as any to regroup. When I finally roll the behemoth into the school parking lot, it's already a hive of activity. Police cars, fire trucks, a couple of National Guard Humvees, and a small army of tired-looking people in emergency vests. I find a spot out of the way, cut the engine, and just sit there for a minute, the silence in the cab almost deafening after hours of engine roar and PA announcements. I'm running on fumes, adrenaline wearing off, leaving me bone-tired and smelling faintly of diesel and swamp water. Then, a familiar, wiry figure taps on my window. It's Sparky, the electrician, grinning like a maniac. He's got a couple of 5-gallon gas cans in his hands. "Man, oh man, Mikey!" he shouts over the lingering wind. "I came over here to see if I could help with their generators, and then I heard about Mikey's Arc on a scanner app. They were talking about this crazy dude in a souped-up bus pulling people out of the water. Knew it had to be you. This is nuts, but totally awesome. You need any generator fuel? Got some premium unleaded here?" I'm too tired to even be surprised. "Sparky, you're a lifesaver. My Jenny's about dry." While he's topping off the behemoth's auxiliary generator tank, Officer Miller trudges over, looking even more exhausted than I feel. But he's actually smiling. "Well, well, well, if it isn't Captain Apocalypse himself," Miller says, leaning against the behemoth's massive front tire. "Or should I call you the voice of reason? Heard that one on the radio, too." "Just Mikey is fine, officer," I say, rubbing my eyes. "So, how much trouble am I in for all this?" I gesture vaguely at the behemoth, which, I have to admit, probably looks like something out of a Mad Max movie set in a suburban flood. Miller chuckles. A dry, tired sound. "Officially, let's see. Driving an uncertified emergency response vehicle, unauthorized use of a public address system, probably a dozen traffic violations, creating a public disturbance. I could be here all day listing them." He pauses, and his smile widens a bit. "Unofficially, we got Brenda." My head snaps up. "You got Brenda? What happened?" "Oh yeah," Miller says with evident satisfaction. "Took her statement a little while ago. Or tried to. She actually attempted to give the arresting officer, Sergeant Kelly, no less, an HOA violation notice for parking his cruiser on her grass while investigating her alleged misunderstanding of municipal siren protocols. Said his tires were causing undue compaction of her prize-winning fescue." Kelly was not amused. I can't help it. A bark of laughter escapes me. Prize-winning fescue. In the middle of a flood she arguably made worse. That's our Brenda. "Yep," Miller confirms. "Anyway, she's down at the station, assisting with inquiries regarding willful destruction of public property and reckless endangerment. The mayor's office is already involved. Apparently, disabling a town's entire emergency siren system because it lacked an HOA permit is frowned upon, even in this town." He shakes his head. "So, back to you. The chief heard what you did today. Said, and I quote, 'Tell that crazy SOB with the bus, thanks. And then tell him to get that damn thing properly registered as something before he gives me a permanent migraine.'" From across the parking lot, I see Sergeant Kelly. He's talking to a firefighter, but he glances over, catches my eye, and gives a curt, almost imperceptible nod. It's the closest thing to a gold star I'm ever likely to get from him. "So," I say, feeling a wave of relief so profound I almost sag against the bus door. "I'm not going to jail?" Miller claps me on the shoulder. "Not today, Mikey, not today. Now, if you'll excuse me, I think I saw some Red Cross coffee over there, and my soul needs it." He trudges off. The next day dawns gray and damp, but the rain has stopped. The great Elm Street deluge of '25, as the local paper is already calling it, is over. Now comes the cleanup. And the legends. My phone hasn't stopped ringing. local news channels, a stringer for a national wire service, even some weird podcast that specializes in unsung suburban heroes and vigilantes. Apparently, the Behemoth and I are local celebrities. "Bus driver turns neighborhood Paul Revere," one headline blares. "HOA president silences sirens, local tinkerer fills breach," screams another. Dave is having an absolute field day. He shows up at my house, which is thankfully on slightly higher ground and mostly unscathed, with a six-pack and a stack of newspapers. "Dude, you're famous," he crows, slapping me on the back. "Captain Apocalypse, the Behemoth bus. You're a legend. A slightly unhinged, possibly still arrestable legend, but a legend nonetheless. Even Pipes, the stoic plumber, calls." "Heard you took the bus for a swim, Mikey," he says, his voice utterly deadpan. "Gotta admit, for a land vehicle, she handles aquatic environments surprisingly well. Now about that high-flow, low-water marine toilet we were discussing, might be more relevant than we thought, eh?" Sparky's already sketching out plans for installing actual emergency strobes and a dedicated multi-tone siren system on the Behemoth. "We gotta make this official, Mikey. I know a guy who sells surplus ambulance gear. We could put a defibrillator in this thing." I manage to politely decline most of the interview requests, though I do give a brief, mumbled statement to a very persistent local TV reporter, mostly to give credit to the actual first responders, and to subtly, or not so subtly, highlight Brenda's unique contribution to the chaos. "Look," I tell the camera, squinting in the unexpected sunshine. "The sirens weren't working, plain and simple. People needed to know what was happening. The bus was the loudest, most visible thing I had. And Brenda Higgins, our former HOA president, just has very strong, very particular opinions on noise abatement and proper permitting procedures, even, it seems, during natural disasters." The mayor's office calls. They want to give me a civic commendation, a key to the city, which I suspect doesn't actually open anything, and invite me to be the Grand Marshal in the Founders' Day parade. I manage to decline the parade and the public ceremony, but I admit, the commendation plaque would look pretty good mounted on the Behemoth's dashboard. A week later, there's a special emergency HOA meeting. The main agenda items: 1. The official censure and removal of Brenda Higgins as president. And 2. What to do about Michael's unconventional automotive project. The community center meeting room is packed. Standing room only. Popcorn is being passed around. Brenda, looking surprisingly deflated but still stubbornly defiant, tries to defend her actions. She quotes bylaws. She mentions procedures. She talks about the sanctity of the HOA covenants. No one is buying it. The vote to remove her is swift, brutal, and unanimous. Even her poodle, Princess Fluffybutt, who she'd snuck in her oversized handbag, doesn't offer a single yap of support. Then, the new acting HOA president, a mild-mannered, bespectacled accountant named Gary, who looks like he'd rather be anywhere else, nervously clears his throat and turns to agenda item number 2, me and the Behemoth. "Ahem, yes, Michael," Gary begins, adjusting his glasses. "About the, rather large vehicle currently residing in your driveway. Technically speaking, and I've reviewed the bylaws extensively, it is still in violation of, well, quite a few of them. Specifically Section 7, Subsection C, Paragraph 2, regarding ongoing restoration projects. Section 9, Subsection A, regarding vehicle weight on residential asphalt. And of course the addendum from 2018 concerning excessively utilitarian aesthetics." I brace myself. Here it comes. Gary takes a deep breath. "However," he continues, a small, nervous smile flickering on his face, "given, recent events and the rather spirited public support for your vehicle's recent extracurricular activities, the board has voted, by a narrow margin, to approve a special, one-time indefinite exemption for the Behemoth." A smattering of applause ripples through the room. I think I see Dave fist pump. Provided, Gary adds quickly, holding up a hand. Provided you might perhaps consider a slightly more HOA-approved exterior color scheme? Something from the approved palette? We have a lovely range of beiges and taupes. And perhaps, his voice drops to an almost conspiratorial whisper, you might agree to not test the PA system quite so early on Saturday mornings. My wife is a very light sleeper. I can't help it. I grin, a wide, genuine grin. Gary, I say, extending a hand. I think we can definitely come to an understanding. Forest green, maybe? With a tasteful silver stripe? Gary beams, his relief palpable. Forest green sounds delightful, Michael. Absolutely delightful. And so, months later, that's where you'll find me. The behemoth, now gleaming in a deep, respectable forest green, her silver stripe catching the afternoon sun, is parked proudly in my driveway. She's a testament to hard work, a little bit of crazy, and the surprising things that can happen when an immovable HOA Karen meets an unstoppable, oversized bus. I'm currently installing a new, much quieter and far more efficient mini-split air conditioning unit on her roof, with the full enthusiastic assistance of Sparky and Pipes, who have basically become the behemoth's unofficial pit crew and fan club presidents. They're arguing good-naturedly about whether to route the condensation runoff into a greywater tank for the, still hypothetical, onboard tomato plants Pipes keeps suggesting. Dave's here, of course, perched on an overturned bucket, drinking my beer. So, Captain Apocalypse is going legit, huh? He says, eyeing the new paint job with approval. Almost looks distinguished. Hey, I say, tightening a mounting bolt. Even a mobile command and public information dissemination unit needs to blend in with the local ecosystem. Mostly. I pat the behemoth's sturdy flank. Still got the big PA, though, and the floodlights, and the tow straps. I wink at Dave. You know, for emergencies. Or, you know, if the ice cream truck needs a really, really significant signal boost way across town. Life on Elm Street is never boring, especially not when you've got a legend in your driveway, a neighborhood that finally understands the meaning of being prepared, and the quiet satisfaction of knowing that sometimes, just sometimes, the guy with the biggest, loudest, most aggressively utilitarian solution is exactly what the world needs. And Brenda, last I heard, she was trying to get a petition signed to regulate the migratory patterns of Canada geese over Elm Street. Some things, I guess, never change. But around here, thanks to one hell of a storm and one very capable bus, a lot of other things sure have.